What's up, friends? It's Fresha, and I am back with a weekly meal prep, this time for winter. We just entered the new year, we're back at work, we're back at school. Cooking for myself is one of my favorite forms of self-care to make sure that I have delicious, nutritious, comforting meals in the fridge or ingredients in the fridge to help make my weeks easier, less stressful, but also to ensure that I'm still taking care of myself. So without further ado, let's head into the video. Okay, first, we're going to boil some eggs. Like I said in my last meal prep video, I like having hard-boiled eggs in the fridge in case I want to snack with some protein. So I'm filling up a big pot with water and throwing a few eggs in. We'll throw this pot on a burner, add a big pinch of salt, and keep an eye on the water as it heats. And right before it hits a boil, I'll set an alarm for 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to get the steak marinated. I'm going to be using this steak as the primary protein in my dense bean salad, which I want to have on hand for lunches throughout the week. So for the marinade, I'm mixing together cumin, oregano, garlic powder, and salt. I got a pound of flank steak from the butcher during my weekend grocery shop, and I'm just cutting it up into more manageable pieces. Then I'm adding a tablespoon or so of olive oil to the steak and rubbing it in. Then I'll just seal up the bag and just, throw it around a little bit. I want to try to get as much of the seasoning rubbed into the steak. I actually think I need to add a little more oil in. Pounding and tossing and massaging the steak like this helps to ensure the steak is tender. Flank steak is a cheaper cut, but that means that it can also be a tougher one. And I'm just gonna let this sit in the fridge while I move through some more meal prep. And while it sits in the fridge, it'll hopefully drink in more of the marinade and tenderize a little more. Okay, my timer for my eggs is going off, so they're ready to go. Normally I throw my eggs in ice water, but I forgot to turn my ice machine on in my freezer last night. So instead I'm just filling a bowl with water as cold as I can get it from the faucet and transferring my eggs in there to cool. I'll switch out this water a couple of times since the heat from the eggs will warm the water, and I'll just keep doing this until the eggs themselves have cooled. Okay, now I'm going to drain out the hot water from the eggs and refill the same pot so I can make dashi. For those of you who aren't familiar with dashi, it's a Japanese soup stock that's used as a base in a lot of Japanese dishes, like miso soup, udon, and donabe. In the winter, I like to always have dashi in the fridge for cooking rice, making soups, and just to have on hand for sipping when I need to warm up or when I'm sick like I am now. So I've taken some kombu, which is seaweed, and before I throw it in the pot, I'm gonna take a slightly damp paper towel and just wipe the surface of the kombu. I'm not trying to take off too much flavor, I just wanna make sure I'm getting any debris off and checking for any mold. Then I'm taking some kitchen scissors and making small snips in the kombu strip to release more flavor into the broth. I'll throw this in the pot along with some dried mushrooms for a richer broth and turn on the heat. I want to keep an eye on this so I can take the kombu out of the water before it hits a full boil. I want to let this dashi come to boil very slowly, so I've put the burner on about low to medium heat. And as the kombu and mushrooms steep into the water over this gentle heat, and as I move about the rest of my meal prep, I just make sure to occasionally skim the foam off the top of the liquid to help ensure I get a clean, bright dashi. Alright, I think my eggs are cooled and ready to be packaged up, so now I'm just draining the water, and I'm gonna wipe off the eggs before putting them in a Tupperware to be stored in the fridge. Okay, I'm just about ready to start cooking my steak, but I need to open the windows in my apartment first. I live in a railroad-style apartment in New York where the air ventilation isn't the best, and since I'm going to be cooking the steak on medium to high heat, I don't want to create a smoke bomb in my apartment. Okay, the dashi is approaching a boil now, so I'm going to remove the kombu and mushrooms from the pot. You want to pull out the dashi before the water fully boils, otherwise it'll get slimy and start to release bitterness into your broth, which will of course in turn make your dashi quite bitter. Now I'm adding a couple of handfuls of katsuobushi or bonito flakes to the pot, and I'm going to let this broth come back to a boil with the katsuobushi in it. So I'm gonna let this rest for about 10 to 20 minutes and let the katsuobushi sink to the bottom. I'm gonna take it off the heat and put it on this back burner so I have room to do other things. Okay, now it's time to cook my steak. I'm just spraying some avocado oil onto a big pan, putting a few pieces of steak on there, making sure that I'm pressing the steak down so it's in full contact with the pan. I'm going for a medium rare steak here, so it'll probably cook for about 6 minutes on one side and 4 to 5 minutes on the other. And when it's done, I'll pull it out of the pan and onto a separate sheet pan so it's off the heat. So I'm gonna let this steak rest on the side while I prepare some other dishes, some other salad elements. so that this is cool and it's not being thrown in hot to other cold salad ingredients. I'm just chopping up some broccoli to have readily on hand throughout the week. Like I've said in previous videos, I love broccoli. It's my go-to vegetable to have in the fridge because it's so versatile, it has a nice bitey texture, and it lasts for a long time in the fridge. Especially because I've always stored my cut broccoli in this OXO veggie keeper, which I swear keeps my cut veggies fresher for way longer than I would expect. Oh, it's also time for me to switch out the green pack for this, so I'm just gonna pop a new one in and put my broccoli in the fridge. I'm also gonna cut up some carrots to have on hand for easy veggie snacks, beginning by rinsing the dirt off this cute little bunch of carrots. My dashi is cool now, so it's ready to be poured into mason jars so I can store it in the fridge. Okay, this was not the cleanest transfer. The funnel helped a little bit, but it's always tricky pouring big pots of liquid into jars. I guess I could have used a ladle, but a little mess is not the end of the world, so whatever. I love the golden color of this dashi. God, it's so gorgeous. I'm so pleased with this batch. It almost looks like a chicken stock. Okay, time to store this in the fridge, and dashi is checked off the list. While my steak is resting, I'm going to get started on the other parts of the dense bean salad. This week I'm making Violet Witchell's steak tzatziki dense bean salad. The recipe calls for white beans, so I'm using cannellini beans. I need to rinse the cucumbers and tomatoes for the salad, as well as drain the beans and give them a good solid rinse. I have 1 bunch each of parsley and dill, which I'm chopping up here, and I'm going to take about 20% of these cut up herbs and put them in my blender to be used in the dressing later. But most of these herbs are going to be kept whole and are going into my big salad now. Now the tomatoes. We're using a whole pinnet here, and we just need to slice them all in half, followed by the cucumbers, which I'm de-seeding before roughly chopping up and throwing into my big salad bowl. Also, we need to chop up a red onion, which, listen, onions in general are not my friend. I'm so sensitive to them, but I'm just gonna have to get over it. Oh, and I almost forgot. I also got a container of pitted Kalamata olives from the Italian deli, so I'm just gonna throw these in whole. I'm leaving the olive oil in the container though. Even though I know it has good flavor, I don't want to throw off the oil to vinegar ratio in the recipe. Okay, it's getting dark now. I'm sorry about that. I really took my time with this meal prep. I think this is when I was starting to get sick, so I was moving a little more slowly than usual. We're now also going to roughly chop up the steak. This isn't quite medium rare, but there is still a little pink there, so I'm fine with that. I'm just gonna do a quick toss of all of this so the ingredients are more evenly distributed in the bowl. Since I have the cutting board out, before I forget, I'm gonna cut up my carrots. Just cut them to jar size length and cover them with water before putting them into the fridge. And as the week goes on, I'll replace their water here and there to keep it fresh. Moving on to the dressing, I'm going to mix a bunch of things into my blender. Remember, we have some of the parsley and dill in there, and to that I'm going to add a container of Greek yogurt, the juice from 1 lemon, please ignore this interlude, not me fishing out lemon seeds from the blender, a clove of garlic, and some apple cider vinegar. Then we'll blend this for about 30 seconds before slowly adding to the salad and tossing together. I decided to reserve some of the dressing into this small pudding container I have, just so that I can revive salads later in the week if they start to dry out. And now it's time to distribute these into jars. I love these mason jars. My friends gave me these reusable caps years ago, so I didn't have to deal with the rusty steel covers that mason jars usually come with. They're such perfect reusable vessels for meal prep meals like this. And of course, I'm going to make a few jars of overnight oats, so I have breakfast on hand for busy mornings during the work week. I put about 6 or 7 tablespoons of oats to each jar with a pinch of salt, followed by equal parts soy milk. Oh, I almost forgot. I need to put a tablespoon of chia seeds in each of these jars for added fiber. Then we'll finish up the soy milk, add a little bit of maple syrup to each, and to finish these up, I'm gonna give each jar a good mix to make sure that nothing is clumping together. All right, to close up this meal prep, let's review all the things we made together today. We've got hard-boiled eggs for an easy protein snack, overnight oats to serve as a base for fruit and protein powder for easy breakfasts, cut up carrots for lunch veggie sides, steak tzatziki dense bean salads for easy lunches on busy work days, dashi to help cut down cooking times for weeknight dinners, oh, and my cute little container of extra dressing. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you guys find some time this weekend to cook yourself something delicious and nourishing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!